thing from one area. And I think similarly with this, it's not reinventing the wheel, is it, to say that somewhere in there it should be that you're allowed to have your own religion or your own belief system and practice that and be unhindered in that practice. But of course, what is happening here is that some people believe that culturally the manifestation of practicing some religions is offensive to the majority because it involves discrimination, it involves death, etc. Well, is that really true? Depends on who you talk to and which religion. Abbas, what are your thoughts on this in Redbridge? Fire away.
Hi there, good morning.
Morning.
I don't find myself agreeing with you a lot, but tonight I do actually agree with a lot that you've said.
Okay.
And you raised some very important points, and I think it's important to address those points. Number one, I think you've said it a few times, and I think it's a valid question. What do these people actually read into Islam that makes them these sort of fanatical, crazed killers?
Sure.
And the reality is, Ian, that when does an interpretation of something become actually a fabrication, a manipulation of that religion? And what these people are actually doing, for example, the Qur'an indeed talks about killing the infidel, but you have to get the context. The context is about a specific event when the Muslims were being attacked for over 7 years, their homes were taken, treaty after treaty was being broken. Finally came the order, kill them wherever you find them. But the verse goes on, Ian. The verse says, but if they want peace, give them peace and escort them to a land of safety. Now, if I only take that middle statement and ignore the context, then quite frankly, I could become a fanatical killer by looking at that verse of the Qur'an,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But you have to apply the context and you have to apply the entirety of what that verse actually means.
So what are they? So are these people just stupid? Are they not able to, in any way, take that interpretation to the level that you and other Muslims are able to take it to? What's happening here?
I think what happens is, in psychology, we learn of a situation that is common within humanity, which is that you are either data-driven or you're concept-driven. The data-driven people are fairly open-minded, and they look at data, hardened data, to actually govern their views. And then you have people who are concept-driven, so they already come with their predispositions. They hate the West, they hate all infidels, they hate all non-Muslims, and then when they come into the religion, because the surprising thing is this chap himself is a convert, he came into the religion, he's got a criminal background. He's already been violent before. He's been arrested for that.
Yep.
And they bring their baggage, their predispositions into the faith. They misrepresent the faith, mistranslate the faith, misquote the faith, and then they justify what they already believe. And that, unfortunately, is not just a trait that you find within Muslims. The Ku Klux Klan, when they burn a cross on somebody's lawn while they're burning their house down, are not following Christianity, right?
Correct. They think they are, of course.
Well, of course they do, but we have to be a little bit more nuanced, and I think rather not polarized in our thinking. We have to understand that the concept that these people attribute to this sort of violence and what have you is not actually accurate to the teachings of Jesus or accurate to the teachings of the Bible. Similarly, these people that go out and commit these acts, the two things I find, quite repugnant, in fact, is that, and, I've had the misfortune of debating and arguing with some of these guys 15, 20 years ago, some of whom are actually in prison today because of their sort of thinking and because of the things that they may have said. And the one thing that they always cited, and I know that a lot of people do not like to talk about this, it was foreign policy. They found a justification, quite wrongly.
But yes. I can see why people have the hump with foreign policy, because I've got the hump with foreign policy. But you're right. It seemed like almost an intelligent interpretation or an excuse.
Exactly. But what they do with that, you see, is then they look at things to justify their predisposition of hatred, of revenge. So even if they have to misquote something or mistranslate something or or ignore the context, they will only take that which supports their predisposition. It's very similar to the far right, who quote these same verses and say it's a problem with Islam. But, people like Karen Armstrong, the British historian who was a nun, has extensively written and presented shows even for the BBC. She says through her 30, 40 years of study of comparative religion, of the Qur'an, of the sayings of the Prophet, of course, of Judaism and Christianity,
Yep.
This phenomena within Islam actually is a very recent phenomenon when you look at the history over 1,400 years. So it's not representative. Has it got something to do with Islam? Well, if we say that the Ku Klux Klan has something to do with Christianity, or the Spanish Inquisition, or the killing of the Red Indians has something to do with Christianity, then this has something to do with Islam. I don't believe either one of those activities actually represented what the faith actually told people to do. But this is just simply people who have a violent, aggressive, disruptive, type of behavior, and they look at things out of context, regardless of, these people that you talk about who are locked up, for example, none of these actually are recognized scholars. Abu Hamza, all of these guys are not scholars.
They just kind of ran away, didn't they, with a Muslim scholar title for a long time. And you sort of had this idea that these were kind of the next thing to God, that they were somehow delivering God's word directly from his mouth to the rest of us. It was sort of extraordinary time. Thankfully, and you're absolutely right, Abbas, we've managed to, I suppose, slightly educate ourselves into not being quite as ready to swallow that particular lie. Abbas, we have to move on. We'll talk to Ahmed in just a few moments.